Frank is one of the ones who, over the years, developed cobia fishing here along our coast. When did you start? When was your first?
My first cobia in 1949.
That was here in Destin?
No, that was over Pensacola.
Pensacola.
And back then we did have spring break. I was on spring break.
I think that actually there's a lot of things that, the cold weather this year has definitely pushed back cobia fishing. Many years, for the last 10 or 12, 15 years, we've had a cobia caught by now already. And but this reminds me back to the year 1993 when we caught the first fish on St. Patrick's Day. The full pool caught it and didn't catch another fish for 10 days, and that's one of the best years that I can remember in a long, long time.
I think the colder the winter, the better the cobia fishing. The reason for that,
Why is that?
global warming.
Global warming? I'm ready for somebody to turn global warming on right now.
No, if the temperature of the water comes up too fast, the fish will stay off the beach more. They'll follow the bait. But the way it is now and the way the temperature of the water is gradually coming up, by the time that temperature gets to around 65 to 66 degrees, then it'll be April 1st. So I never even started cobia fishing until the temperature of the water got to 65 degrees. And then they're little finny. When it gets between 68 and 72, they will bust loose like hell.
Yeah, that's kind of what I remember back from '93 when we had a cold like this. And some of the pier guys may remember some of the stories back then, but one of the days that I remember back then is called Bloody Wednesday on the pier. There was so many fish that day. It was really funny, the morning was really, really foggy and you couldn't see anything. And when the first wads of fish broke loose that morning, it got to the point where you could not literally throw into groups of 5 or more fish. You waited till you saw 1, 2, or 3 because you couldn't catch one because so many people hooked them. And I think that when the weather's like this, it sets up the weather. The weather pattern is very important for cobia fishing. Is it like last year when the weather was perfect? The wind was from the south, the current was from the east, and the lower current was from the east. And the fish can swim at any level they want. And you can't, they can be on the bottom, they can be on the top. There's nothing to keep them on top. But when we have a really cold winter like this, it sets up a pattern where we have a hard current from the west. As the land starts to warm, it sucks the wind off the water. We get a nice southerly wind with the east current, and it pushes the fish to the surface, makes them much easier to spot.
Everybody has their theory of when they're going to be here, when the first one's going to be caught, blah, 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 blah. But I've always been a firm believer in the monarch butterflies. When you see them, it's time to get your rod and reel ready. The hell with the blooming dogwoods and the Japanese. They showed pictures of Washington, D.C. the other day, and they got dogwoods blooming up there. So when you start seeing the monarch butterflies, then you can start figuring out the cool.
And that goes along with all the things in nature, and like Frank says, everybody has an opinion on when the cobia are going to get here and how they're going to get here. And I'm a firm believer that everything in nature revolves around the moon. And the fish migrate with moon phase and not water temperature. When the fish are in the 10,000 islands and Tampa and the Keys, they have no idea if it's warm or hot or cold up here. But they know when the moon's in the sky for X amount of minutes a night, that their biological clock says, I got to swim to Louisiana and spawn now, so they start coming. And they're going to, the butterflies and the cobia and the birds are all going to get here about the same time, somewhere around March 20th to 25th. The weather out here is going to play a huge factor in whether or not we can catch those fish. If it's not warm enough when they get here, they're not going to be on the surface. They're going to be subsurface fish, and we're not going to be able to see them. So the weather does play a tremendous part in our ability to catch fish once they get here.
Everybody has their own way of doing things. And when I started fishing out of a boat, cobia fishing, I was probably the only person in Pensacola that fished out of a 15.5 foot, 15.5 foot boat with a step ladder, 35 horse outboard Chrysler engine, and I had a down ball. I drilled 2 holes on top of that step ladder so I could put my rods in there. And I also had 3 or 4 rods, around the boat. I only had about 8 foot of freeboard on that little boat I had. But anyway, one day I hooked up about a 70-pound cobia. There was 3 of them, as a matter of fact. And I hooked that cobia up, and I picked up my other rod, so I just stick it in the rod holder on the top of the ladder. Nub down a little bit on the drag, pick my rod up, so the cast that the fish was with it. Well, when I backed off from that ladder, that dude that I had hooked up decided he wanted to go south. And I thought I was going with him. So that little old boat did like this. I said, whoa, you better take that rod out of that ladder, man, or you're going to be out here swimming. And needless to say, I never put another rod up there on top of that ladder. I fished 28 years by myself. No help. Well, I did have a little bit of help. My 2 oldest sons would go with me. And I would hook a fish up. I'd hand the rod to them, and one of them would hold the rod, and the other one would reel. Until they got about 30 foot from the boat, and they said, here you go, Daddy. I said, no, I can't, the gaffer ain't coming on. Bring him on in here. And that's the way it was when I took somebody with me. I never really started taking too many people with me until after, I think it was 90, 91. I was out there by myself, had 4 fish hooked up, standing on the fantail of my boat, and a freaky ass wave come up, and if I had to jump backwards when I did, I would have been overboard. I was about 3/4 mile off the end of Crystal Beach Pier. Well, needless to say, Tony Davis was out there that day in the Anastasia. He saw me, and he told my girlfriend. And from that day on, well, I wouldn't say up until now, but from that day on until the time she left me or I left her, I have had somebody fishing with me. All right, now we're going fishing. We're going west. And a lot of people have their own theory about how to approach a fish, blah, 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 blah. And when a lot of these pier jockeys, I don't call them pier rats, I detest the word rat. Pier jockeys. And I will say one thing, they're the best. The guys that run these big charter boats, or any kind of charter boat that's privately owned, I'll guarantee you they got their experience from the pier. They are top notch. Anytime you can cast 85 or 90 yards and hit a bucket, you damn good. And they practice that all winter long. Am I right, Kelvin?
That's right.
You have to break them in again when they leave the pier and they get on the boat. Would you be going along and you see a couple of fish? Boing! No, 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 you don't do that on this boat. What do you mean? They do that? I said, I'll tell you when to cast. You don't cast at a boat 40 yards in front of the boat. I said, I'll get the boat right, and then you can cast at the fish. Them fish is on a mission. They're going west. And to cast at one in the front of the boat, to turn him around, think. Get the boat in front of him a little bit, cast back on the fish, you're more likely to hook him up in your arms and cast out there. He goes down, you can't see where he goes, blah, blah, blah.
Tell us why we're going to fish west. Why are we going west instead of east in the morning?
Because that's why I like it. I got the sun in my back. Because when I go out that pass at Destin, and I turn west, you don't never have to worry about the sun getting in your eyes. Never. You fish down to Pensacola, get down there, 11:30, 12, 1 o'clock, you turn around, where's the sun? Right there on your back again. Going back home with the sun on your back. To see a guy leave this Destin Pass, turn west, and put in a 9-hole, and run over half a dozen fish off of Okaloosa Island Pier, the first thing they do is haul it back and turn around, back to where they seen the fish. Well, he's a lost ball in high grass because them fish is 100 yards in front of him. They're not behind him. And they'll sit in the same damn place they saw the fish for 10 minutes looking. The fish is still swimming to the west, man. I like that.
How would you go about refinding that fish, Frank? How would you go about finding that fish?
Easy. Easy. When you run across a bunch of fish, you don't run across bunches anymore. When you run across 2 or 3 fish, and you might laugh at me when I say bunches, I've seen cobia just as far across you could look at the Gulf of Mexico. Schools, 45, 50. Just pick out the one you want. But you still ain't going to get him because them little monkeys will beat him to the bait. Anyway, when you're looking for a fish, you run over a fish. All I do is take, just gear it back, pull off the beach about 25 or 30 yards, move up 25 or 30 yards, take it out of gear, and sit there and wait for you. 9 times out of 10, he will pop up there. And most of the time, he's going to pop up offshore. A fish, as long as I've been cobia fishing, I have never, ever seen a fish break toward the beach and still go that way. When you run over a fish or you spook a fish, 99,000 times out of 10,000, he's going down until going out in deep water. They don't run to the beach when you spook them. I always try, can't do it all the time, but I always try to hook a fish on the right-hand side of him, right-hand side of his jaw. You know why that? Because I know if I hook him on this side, he's offshore of me. I don't have to worry about him running under the boat if I throw it 20 or 30 yards inshore of me. I always throw the fish on the offshore side of him. Because when you hook him up, what you gonna do? He's gonna head for deep water. And you don't have to worry about him running under the boat.
What kind of rod and reel are we going to use? You gotta tell me what kind of tackle I need to take, what kind of rod and reel, and how many do I need?
I don't know how many you need, but when I was,
I need about 8.
well, the max that I ever had at one time on my boat by myself was 6. And there were several times I had 6 rods loaded. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't make them anymore. They don't make them anymore. The best rod I ever owned in my life was what? Was a G. Loomis. A 1088 G. Loomis. They don't make them anymore. I don't understand why. When they make something good, they quit making it. The same way with Sperry shoes. They don't make this brand anymore. Oh, why? Because we sold a lot of them. We're going to try something else. Blah, blah, blah.
We've got to wear off, man. We got to sell another one.
8-foot rod. Wait a minute, I was thinking about it. 8-foot rod. I use a spinning reel. At one time, I owned 13 Van Stalls. From the 250 to the 200 to the 150 to the 100. You just name the type of fish you want to fish with. I said, hold on a minute, I'll get you a reel. So, but Van Stahl is made in China now. I don't like that. I don't like nothing that's not made in the United States. In my lifetime, I've owned 5 different rods. Other than a G. Loomis, the best rod I ever owned was a Browning Silaflex. I also used Lamy glass. I also used that big old black, heavy Harnell. And what was another?
Casey, Fenwick, All-Star.
Fenwick, yeah, Fenwick, okay.
Fenwick
Did I
1088.
get my mic?
Yeah, that's Fenwick.
Okay. And now I use, I got one G. Loomis, and I got one, what's that, a what?
An All-Star maybe? A Star Rod?
The funny names, Red Rider, what the heck's the name?
Rain Shadow.
Red Riding Hood. She's,
No,
Rain
you
Shadow.
gotta change that big bad wolf.
what's the name of it?
Rain Shadow?
I said Rain Shadow. I knew that, no.
They're out of business too. They're out of business too.
I know. Every time I get something good, it leaves me.
But if you had to buy a reel today, what would you buy?
They don't make them anymore either.
Well, I guess you just don't have to go fishing.
A 706.
They quit making that one about 4 years ago, and the parts have all dried up.
Yes, they are. Anytime you have to pay $75 for a spoon, it's getting very, very dry.
Okay, we determined that we would like an 8-foot rod and a nice spinning reel. What kind of line are we going to fish with?
Well, there's only one kind of line. Thank God they're still making it. Oh, Suffix. Oh. But I've used 3 or 4 different types of lines too. The first line I ever used in my life was Assinipi Blue Dot. The first line that Gooberoid or Gooberoid or whatever the hell they call them came out with was Good Line.
Goober rod?
Yeah, that's it. And then, what's that line that everybody uses?
Power Pro? Andy?
Andy.
Strand.
I would have hit a hog with that one.
Which one?
Andy is about as useless as beep beep on a hog. The reason why I say that, I have never ever taking a piece of 25-pound test Andy, putting 5 loops in it, and grabbing it, and pulling it, and break it every time. Put 5 loops in the suffix, and pull it, you ain't gonna break it. Same way with several more different types of iron. And suffix has beautiful knot strength. And a lot of times I've seen these guys cast off the pier. And they're rear back and fire, and all you hear is, "Ow!" What in the world's going on? They blame it on the line being wrapped around the rod. I know what it was. So let me see the line. They bring it back and it's got a little curl in it. I said, that's a knot you had in the damn jig. That's where it broke.
Well, what kind of knot would you put there?
What?
What kind of knot would you tie?
I don't know what kind of knot he tied, but I've been using the same knot since 1949.
Well, tell me what it is so I'll know.
Give me something, give me something.
Well, we got some line in that bucket right here.
Okay. Well,
Hello, Carl. Hello.
you take it, you put it through the hook, you bring it out and you wrap it 5 times. You go right back through the side of the hook, pull the head out through the loop, and pull it down tight. You gotta go make that moist a little bit.
So you're tying an improved clinch knot. That was an improved clinch knot, or a Fisherman's knot.
1949. And now you got 5,280 tight knots. If you don't use this one, it ain't gonna work.
You know that knot won the World's Fair in 1927.
It ought to. I'm glad.
Okay, so we know that we're fishing to the west, and we know that we're using an 8-foot rod, somewhere between 8 and 9-foot rod, fiberglass or graphite with a 20 to 30 pound spinning reel and 25 to 30 pound line.
Yes.
Okay, now how are we going to rig these rods? Are we going to use live bait, or are we going to use jigs? What are we going to do?
Well, you can have all the live baits you want. I'll use my ding-a-lings right here.
But what if I see a 100-pounder?
I got a 100-pounder hanging on my wall was caught on a ding-a-ling.
How many have you pulled off on one of them ding-a-lings? How many have you pulled off on one of them lures?
None.
None.
No, I don't pull them off. I don't have my drag sitting down tight to where they break off. This big guy said, oh, that brings up a good subject right there, Tim.
I always bring up a good subject.
These guys that fish off the piers, they are hell-bent to hook the fish up and bring him to the pier and gaff him. You don't gaff a 50-pound fish in 5 minutes. You don't gaff a 50-pound fish in 20 minutes. When you hook a fish up on a pier, back off on the drag because he's trying to get away. He's trying to get away from you. Back off on the drag, let it walk around the pier, let it go out to the southwest 100 yards, and when you bring him back, he's ready for the gaff because he'll be laying on his side. But these guys that fish on these,
Oh, don't get me started on that.
you what?
I said, don't get me started on that pier fishing thing.
No, not me either. But I like the pier. I like to go to the pier.
I grew up there.
I arrest the hell out of them. They even got me a little whistle. If the kids get out of bed, and I'm going to take you in time out for 5 minutes. Yeah, kind of calm them down a little bit. They don't run around like they used to.
Well, tell me, if I was fishing with these ding-a-lings, I wonder where these things came from. Some guy in China probably invented these, right?
Yeah!
I said, some guy in China probably invented ding-a-lings, right?
Hey, I know, Tim, let me tell you something about these ding-a-lings. I want to know, over a period of 8 years, how many of these did you sell?
About 2,500 per year.
Yes. and somebody copied my lure, and they started selling them to Tim for a lot cheaper than I could wrap them, because I hand wrapped mine.
Thank you.
And, but I didn't say nothing to Tim,
7 kids to come about.
so if they can buy it cheaper, fine. But I'm gonna tell you something right now, when I go in there and buy something, I said, where in the hell is my discount? Right on.
So, tell me about the first time, how the ding-a-ling came about.
You know, I should have brought one of them. I should have brought one. I got the original 1963 ding-a-ling.
Mine has lawn chair webbing on it.
Yeah, that's not what it was.
Has lawn chair webbing on
That's
it.
what it was. We combed it out.
I still have a ding-a-ling that has lawn.
Plastic rope on it.
It has plastic lawn chair webbing on it. I know there's two types of ding-a-lings.
No, there's only one type. There's two sizes, one type.
Right, but I want to know the difference in why I should be using one and why I should use the other.
Oh, okay. Where's that? This one here.
Yeah, that one there.
That's the boat ding-a-ling.
A boat ding-a-ling.
Yep.
What makes a boat ding-a-ling different than a pier
Oh,
ding-a-ling?
just the head of it's cut off.
Well, why do I want a head cut off like that for? If it was the other kind of head, I could throw it further.
Well, let me tell you something. You can keep this lure up on the top a lot easier than you can a 3-ounce one. This is only 1 5/8 inches. And you can work it up top, make it do the St. Barbara's dance off, and then you can hook it.
Okay. So, I got my rod, my reel, my line, my jig. How am I going to read that?
Tie it on to a leader.
What kind of leader?
About this long. That's a long leader, just like that.
Well, depending on, if you tell me how long that is, that might be like 24 inches, and if my wife tells me how long that is, that might be 6 inches. 30 inches.
And I do not, listen to me,
Okay.
I do not use fluorocarbon. That's better. Get your money. I've been catching cobia since 1949, and I never, ever used fluorocarbon. Do you
I'm
think?
gonna have to disagree with Frank here.
Do you think I could caught more fish if I used fluorocarbon?
Absolutely. Do you know why? Because fluorocarbon is the same density as salt water and doesn't refract light. Now, the jig probably doesn't make a big difference.
Tim, I know you're a businessman. When you run a tackle shop. But if you think for 1 minute that damn cobia is looking at that fluorocarbon instead of that jig, I'll keep on Broadway, give you half an hour right now. You really believe that? There's one hell of a fisherman sitting back there by the name of Chris. He is OPI Tex, OPI. And he picks up my rod on the pier one day. And he says, this drag is not tight enough. I said, is that your rod? He said, no. I said, well then, it's tight enough for me. So, be like a dumbass. I walked over and picked up his. I had to wrap the damn line around my arm to pull the drag off. What in the hell? Why drag like that? I know right now. He was fishing on the pier, and when you hooked him up, he wanted to bring him right in there and get him.
If I was tournament fishing and was setting up my boat to go tournament fishing, I would have in the tower a variety of things to throw. You never want to be without having options, because there's always that one fish he's not gonna want a jig, or he's not gonna want a live eel, he's not gonna want a live mullet, or a live kingfish, or a mingo, or a squid ball rigged on a hook with no leader rig. It's about having options to throw at fish, and if you don't have those options ready to go, that's when you're gonna cost yourself a tournament. That's why I say when we go fishing, we never leave without 8 rods rigged. There's 2 of the jigs, there's 2 of the eels, there's a mullet rigged up. One of the secrets that we use on our mullet is if you'll take the fork of his tail, cut that bottom fork off, cut 1 pec fin off. The only thing that mullet can do is swim in a circle. Absolutely will drive him crazy.
All you gotta do is tap him on the deck, and he won't go on the surface no more. The fish can catch it.
You watch him come up there and eat that mullet right off the stern of the boat, and you'll see one thing, when Cobia comes up, eats it, he sits there for a second, and you see his gills go, dunk, dunk, and scales come out, and you set the hook now. You were using, yes sir.
I was going to ask you, when we were talking the other day about cobia fishing, and you were talking about getting set up for the tournaments, and talking about the multiple rods and the different baits and how you lay them out with the buckets. Can you talk about that for a second? Because I really actually kind of learned something from that. Can you kind of go through that?
Yeah. I always lay the tower out the same way, no matter, every day that I go, the tower is set up the same way. There'll be 2 rods in the tower. The steering station is here, and I think one of the most important things in cobia fishing is that the driver of the boat, he cannot let go of the wheel. That's what we have anglers for. I like to have 2 anglers and a driver. So I'm standing here, we have 1 rod on either side of the tower that's facing forward with 2 buckets on the front deck. Both of those buckets will have live eels in them. On my right-hand side, there's always a mullet rigged up on the right. There's all on the left, there's always a pinfish, a mingo, or some type of small fish on the left side. Right behind me on either side are 2 jig rods, and right in the center in the cooler is a hook that has a squid ball rigged on it with no leader. It's the same setup every time I go. That way, there's never confusion as to what we're gonna do. We can go from one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other, and present a bait to the fish, and do it in a timely fashion, and always have an option to go to.
Have you ever managed to hook every single rod up on a fish? Has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
Can you run us through how that works? And why?
Well, I was fishing
How long ago has that been?
about, probably I would say 2000.
Yes, he asked how long ago it's been. It's the big wads of fish. They're a little more and more, I guess, rare to see, but it does happen. You can still see, wads of fish coming through. So when that happens, which one usually bites first?
What happened to us on this particular day is we found a wad of 7 fish, and we needed 2 of the fish in the group were over 50 that we needed, but the other fish were much more aggressive. The smaller fish are always more aggressive, so we're looking at these 2 fish that we need. We're sitting there throwing, trying to work, but just can't quite get those fish. The little fish is always running up to the bait, the jig, trying to eat it. So it finally came to the determination that there's only 2 of us in the boat, but there's 7 fish. We had to hook all 7 to get the 2 we wanted. It was a matter of hooking the little fish up, putting it in a rod holder, walking it down. Hooking the fish up, putting it in a rod holder, walking it down. Getting all the little fish out of the way so we could catch the 2 that we really wanted.
So now, let's say you and Frank are fishing in the boat, he's thrown the jig, he's hooked a fish up, and you get to throw your favorite bait, what's that going to be? What's the first one you throw?
First thing I'm gonna throw is live eel.
Gotcha.
After the jig.
After the jig.
Yeah.
How do you present an eel to a fish?
Well, it's one of those, like Frank says, you want to have that fish on the offshore side of you. Once you throw, you want to, it's always a matter of getting it just close enough, but not too far away. You get it too far away, he never sees it. You throw it, if you hit him in the tail, he doesn't see it.
So using your arms, what's too close and what's too far away? What do you think?
4 feet.
Gotcha. And as far as throwing a fish bait, same thing, same distance?
Yes.
And I'm calling fish bait basically anything mullet, pinfish, pigfish, that kind of thing. So once you've thrown that and that fish eats, then what's next?
Well, if you throw a live bait at a fish and the live bait's going to hit the water, and as soon as he sees the fish, the live bait starts to take off to the bottom. When you see that cobia, you'll see him swimming along, and you see him do like this. When you see the white of his belly, he just ate it. You can get him now. It doesn't matter where you're using it. You know, my choice is a circle hook. I know Frank's gonna disagree with me here. You probably don't want to throw a treble hook at him, but I like to use a circle hook. That way, if I have angler error, I still get my fish. With a treble hook, there's too many things to go wrong. I can have angler error, the fish can foul the treble hook, the eel can foul the treble hook. Lots of things go wrong.
Well, let's go back a second for the first cast. Frank, when you throw the jig at the fish, how do you present the jig? What do you do?
Put it in his mouth.
You land it in his mouth.
I'm pretty good at that.
So for us less accomplished anglers, how do you fish a jig?
Normally, I throw a fish on the offshore side. I throw a jig, Frank. I throw a jig on the offshore side of the fish and bring the jig right across his nose. And you can tell if he really, really wants it. And when I can tell if he really, really wants it, he ain't gonna get it right then. I'm gonna jig him a little this way, do that, take it away from him, drop it down, take it down. But then when you lay that rod down and he takes it, you don't have to worry about it because it's down here. That Cobia says he's gonna piss me off enough, I'm gonna get it and go. And another thing, when you're fishing with a jig, you throw a jig out there in front of the fish and you're working it, and that fish is following it. And he takes it. Takes patience. Do not set the hook until he turns sideways. Because if you do, you're going to pour it out of his mouth. When that fish takes that jig and he rolls one way or the other, that's when you set the hook. If he's coming straight at you, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get him.
What'll happen to the jig if you set it once?
It might come back and hit you in the head. Because you got enough.
And so that is usually how we fish it. We'll throw jigs a lot of times first cast. Depends, sometimes tournament fishing. I mean, we'll throw eels usually first off the bat, but jigs are a great way to do it. One of the things I wanted to talk about on the jig real quick is now Frank's jigs, you may not have to sharpen the hooks. He probably sharpens them up. They're probably razor sharp, I bet. But a lot of hooks that you buy, that you get on a jig, you want to look at that hook and pay close attention to it. We always cover, things about looking into the details of how to fish for whatever species we're covering. And this applies across the board. You'll hear me say it time and time again, but it's that important. It's hook sharpness is a major, major factor in catching fish. If you don't sharpen the hooks on jigs, there's a good chance you won't be able to, or you'll lose the fish. You have a higher percentage of losing the fish and throwing the hook if you don't sharpen hooks. And I used this example the other day. If I've got 2 boards and I cut them into a wedge shape, and one is a wide wedge like this, and I take a sledgehammer and try to drive it into the ground, I'm going to have to hit it pretty hard to get it to go in the ground. Now, if I take another board and I cut it with a small wedge or a sharp point and I hit it, I'm going to have to use a lot less force to drive it into the ground. Well, the same thing applies on a smaller scale. The sharper the hook, the farther that hook goes in, the more the barb gets a chance to get in there and the less likely you are to lose fish. So that's an important part of jig fishing.
I think it's an important part of any kind of fishing. The difference between catching fish, between getting bites and catching fish, is definitely hook sharpness, and it matters no matter whether we're cobia fishing, snapper fishing, trout fishing, redfish fishing. It just doesn't matter. There are a lot of hooks, like the owner hooks out on the market that are chemically sharpened, black nickel Teflon coated spring wire hooks that come out of the package ready to go. But the cobia jigs that come off the rack, the hooks are so large, and most of those hooks do not come ready to fish. If you walk out and see any good charter boat, private boat, guy on the pier, one of the first things they're doing there in the morning while they're floating down the beach is sitting there with a file doing just like this, making sure that hook's ready to go. Hello?
Does anybody have any questions to ask? If you do, come up here, because I can't hear you, and I can't read your lips that far.
Oh, come on. Fire away.
What's your question?
What about swivels? They're heavy, strong fish. About getting good swivels, what I've been breaking.
Well, I'll tell you about the swivels. I don't know if this man has them or not, but I use Spro. S-P-R-O. I think they're the best swivels made. And 60-pound Spro swivel is about the size of what would you say?
Of a 30-pound sandbag.
Yeah.
And why do you like, what is it about this Spro swivel that you like? What about the Spro swivel is it that you like, other than its size?
It works.
And why do you think that is?
I have no idea. Somebody said they were ball bird. I can't see how they get a ball bird and a little flame like that have two but let me tell you something. It works.
The reason it works is a Spro swivel or a Sea Striker swivel that we carry. It's the same type of swivel. Spro is a brand, but actually it's a type of swivel also. It's one of the few swivels that's actually a stainless steel spring wire swivel. Because it's spring wire, just like an owner hook, it allows them to make the swivel much, much smaller and still have strength. You know, the normal Sampo or whatever swivel that you get out there, 100-pound swivel is a very large swivel. Well, unfortunately, during Cobia season, there's a ton of Spanish along the beach. If you have a swivel that's oversized, you may have that 100-pounder hooked up, and all of a sudden a little Spanish comes by, and as that swivel's cutting through the water,
See you later.
he comes by and eats that swivel thinking it's a little shrimp or a little creel or a little minnow or something. So you do want a swivel that's very, very small, but you still need the strength. Well, that Spro style, that Spro style swivel allows that to happen because you can have a very small swivel, but still have the strength needed to catch a 100-pound fish.
But anyway, I want you to hold this one so I can talk it. Why does everybody buy a rod that the butt end is this long? Why? Have you ever tried a different butt length? Huh?
Why would you want a different butt length?
This long. Right here. That butt length is 6 inches too short.
Why?
Because
Tell me why.
when I cast a rod, it's not like I'm playing baseball and choke up on the bat. This way here, if that rod butt was over here, and I cast it, I got full swing, and not like you choke up on a bat. Like the coach would say, take two and hit right.
So we're looking for distance or accuracy?
Both.
Oh.
Both. And another thing, when you cast them, I'm glad you brought that up. Can I set this back over there?
Sure.
Casting, people tell you how to cast. Most people try to tell you how to cast, don't know how to cast. But when I cast, I let my finger off the line at 9 o'clock. Everybody lets theirs off at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. The reason why I let my finger off the line at 9 o'clock is because when that lure hits the water, I put it on the manual, it's ready to work the jig. At 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, when that lure hits the water, you got to take 4 turns before you get your line back to where you can work the jig. Try it sometimes. See if it don't work.
Well, what if it's a full moon day and I'm fishing like at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning?
I don't give a damn about the moon, I'm just talking about the arch. Wait. Does anybody else want to know anything or ask this question?
You almost explained it, Frank, about the moon.
What about the what?
What the moon got to do with fishing next day? Full moon?
Right.
Underneath?
How do you know, say on the weather, how do we pick a day to go? Are we gonna fish a day with a full moon, before a full moon, after the full moon?
I understand what you said. But to answer you, during the cobia season, the hell with a moon, we go every day. But wait, I'll answer your question. I always like it, and I've caught more cobia on a filling moon. I've got less cobia on a killing moon. And the first 8 or 10 days of a filling moon is the best. The last part of that is when you get to the full moon. Well, I fish on full moons, but you don't catch as many fish as you do if it's dark nights.
I understand what they're feeding more like.
When do you catch them on the full moon?
Yeah, I've caught on full moon.
What time of the day do you, if you had to fish on a full moon day, what time of the day would you fish?
All day long.
When do you think you're gonna catch the most fish during that all day period?
Man, I'm telling you, if I'd have kept track of all that, I wouldn't be right here right now. I'd be in Las Vegas. Nah,
Catch this out.
Nobody to cover your feet left during the day, full moon night.
They
I think they feed less in the morning than they do at night. Because on full moons, they go into the beach to feed. And you're gonna catch more fish afternoon than you do early in the morning, unless you get them leaving the beach.
on the full moon days, you have to fish very, very early. Because the first 2 hours of the day on the full moon, the last 2 hours of the day on the full moon, and when the moon is exactly opposite the earth, is when the fish are going to feed. The mid-morning and the mid-afternoon period is going to be very slow. But first 2 hours, last 2 hours, and when the moon's exactly opposite the earth. With the time change, that's going to make it be mid-afternoon because of this. We're not on Eastern time, and we've got this messed up time that we're on now and stuff like that. But that's when you want to fish on a full moon. Okay, let's say we've gone west and we got our tackle and we got our baits and we hooked the fish, and now we want to get him in the boat. What's the proper way to get the winning fish in our boat?
With a damn good gaff hook. But
Tell me what a good gaff hook is.
let me tell you something before you get him in the boat. Before you get him in the boat, he's got to be laying on his side and his tail going flip, 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 flip. Then you know when you stick that gaff hook in, he ain't gonna knock the hell out of you when you put him in the boat. He's gonna be ready for the box. Don't never. Well, that reminds me. Me and my oldest son was out fishing one day. 2 fish. We both said, both through, 2 jigs. Blip, blip. Both of us was on. And I asked Glenn, I said, you on? He said, yeah. Set the hook. I set the hook. 1 fish ate both jigs. The other fish was glued to his side. About 45, well actually he's 48 pounds. And he brought him around by the boat, and the fish was still glued to him. I said, if you bring him back here again, I'm gonna put the gaff hook in him. And I did. And all hell broke loose.
So I'm not the only one that's freak out for one, huh?
What?
I said I'm not the only one that's freak out to fish. I won't do it again.
That is the only one that I ever free gaffed. And I had several more chances. I said, no.
You only do it once. Mine was 37 pounds, I won't ever do it again.
You don't think they ain't tough?
Okay, so I got this nice fish.
When
and he's
they
letting
jumped
it
this
go.
high off the deck, and then slacked their tail, like my father used to backhand me. Oh!
Okay, so I got my Cobia sitting here beside the boat doing just like this. Where am I gonna stick him with this gaff?
Right in the back.
Right in the back, or right under this pec fin, or?
Oh, you bleed too much. Put it in his back. The
Okay.
reason why I say that, these gas that you got here, they're good gas, but they're not good enough for me.
Gotta hold your microphone up so they can hear you, right? Say that again.
These gas, see, hold it. The gas that I have comes up like this, and makes it bend out like that. It comes down 9 inches. And when I gas them, I stick the gas under them. Not over the top, so you'll spook him. I stick the gas under him. And when I stick that gas under him, I pull it out just like that, and that gas goes right through the middle of his back. No blood. You don't bleed. I won't ever down out on the scale.
So, if I was to, let's talk about this every ounce on the scale thing, because I think that's very important for anyone who's going to tournament fish. You know, there's a lot of the guys now, because they're, that aren't very proficient with the gaff, that have two methods of getting those fish to the dock without losing weight. And the most popular thing that's come about in the last few years is a Cobia net. Tell me how to use a Cobia net.
Net is good. I forget that damn mic. Now, I'll tell you, I like the idea of using nets. That way, when you got a fish that's not legal, or you just want to tag him and throw him back overboard, you don't have no gaff marks in or nothing. And I think Tommy Holmes from Falcast is the one really started that. And got several more boats over that area using them big old nets. I've been trying to find one that we can use on the pier. I've seen a collapsible net, but I don't know, you can drop down there, get the fish in when you fish, the net collapses. I wish I could find one like that, because I think you land a lot more fish off the pier than you do now.
I'll be right back.
I'll tell you all a story about net and cobias and the difference that it can make for you. About 3 or 4 years ago, I was the weighmaster down for the Hog's Breath Cobia tournament. And while I was this particular year, the data man comes to the dock. It's a boat out of Pensacola. And it's all about the care of your fish. From the time you hook him to the time you get him to the scale. But when they showed up that day, their fish had been netted. So it didn't have a gaff hole in it, it didn't bleed out, and the cooler, that once they caught the fish, they went straight from the net to a 320 SSI cooler that had not only ice in it, but it had a combination of ice, salt water, baking soda, and ballyhoo brine, which effectively brings the freezing point of the water to about 25 degrees instead of 32 degrees. It's a much colder water, so that preserves the fish better, and the fish had been netted. Well, their fish weighed 102 pounds. About 15 minutes later, a good friend of mine, who I've tried to convince about netting fish, Kurt Reynolds on the SS Enterprise, shows up with a fish that weighs 89 pounds. Their fish was 12 inches longer and considerably larger around. They cost themselves $42,000, the difference between first and second place. Their fish had 3 gaff holes in it and was wrapped in 3 beach towels, not in a cooler with a slush brine, and had not been netted. Had their fish been properly cared for, it was at least 10 or 12 pounds larger. but it cost them $40-something thousand was the difference. And their fish was definitely bigger. They know, and it is a trick to learn to use the net. I mean, it's not that you're gonna go out there and use a cobia net the first time out and make this work. You know, I meant to bring a net down with me today and I forgot. But it's one of the things, the net has a 42-inch hoop on it. And if I was holding the net here, the bag would be dragging on the floor. You have to grab the bag of the net and hold it with one finger. And you're not gonna take this net and swing it through the water like a little, you know, a net that you would use for trout or redfish or something. The angler, the boat driver, and everything has to get the fish in the right position so that when the fish is coming alongside the boat, you can drop the net in the water, the fish slides in, you let go with your front finger, and as you pull up, you're not gonna try to lift that fish into the boat. You're gonna reach around,
Grab them. Just like this.
just like I have my hand on the front of the gaff, and hold it with two hands. Lift the fish into the boat. This does two things for you. If it's a big fish, it gets him under control because the fish is so bent in the net that he can't flip, he can't do anything. You can reach in, unhook him, slide him right into the cooler. If it's a little fish that you want to tag and release, there again, you can reach in, unhook him, take him, put him right over the side, release that fish unharmed. If you're into conservation and you're in helping out our fishery, you need a net. If you're going to win cobia tournaments, you need a net. It will make you money.
And you also know, if you're fishing in a big tournament, you also need a fish bag.
A fish bag, fish cooler, something that you can put that fish in that holds ice, holds salt, holds ballyhoo brine, and can lower the temperature of that fish. There is one other trick that we can tell y'all about gaffing a fish. And I always struggle with finding a way to do this in a mixed environment.
If I was you, I wouldn't even think about it. Let's talk about something else, about cobia fishing.
All right? If anybody wants to know the other trick, you come see me after the show. Does anyone have any questions that we need to answer before we go on here? Yes, sir.
You double your line.
You talking about doubling when you tie a knot? If you're tying a quality knot, the answer to that is no. I don't like using some, he's talking about making like a double line using a bidley twist or a spider hitch or something about 3 or 4 feet of having 2 lines. I think that works really great when you're trolling, but when you're doing something like for cobia fishing where you're actually casting, that knot from where you had to tie that double line would have to be in the guides to be able to make a proper cast. That little knot is very apt to hang up in one of the guides and either cause you to break the lure off, make a bad cast, throw the live bait off, something bad can happen. And so I don't like using a double line for this type of fishing. I've seen everything go wrong that can go wrong cobia fishing. We put up on a group of fish one day and I had some of my buddies that I thought knew how to fish, and I get, we saw the fish figured a ways off, there was 5 or 6 of them, so I get 3 of them up on the bow, and one has a jig, one has a live eel, and one has a mullet, and we see the fish and we'll pull up to them, and I pull the boat out of gear and I'm like, okay guys, here you go. I want all y'all to go at the same time, everybody's gonna get a bite. Well, they all 3 throw, and I'm standing there going, what just happened? One's thrown the bait, the eel has gotten thrown off. The mullet is behind the boat, and the jig is wrapped around the bow rail over here somewhere. 3 of them did not get a bait in the water. We reloaded them, put them on the bow again. We still didn't get a bite out of the next 3 casts. So finally, me and my buddy in the tower, we hooked 2 of the fish and handed them some rods, walked them down, pull up in front of the fish, hook 2 more, and give them some rods to fight fish with. So I've seen it all go wrong. If there's a way to do it, I've figured out a way to lose it.
Okay. Thank you. Another one of my secrets,
I
when I
like
was
secrets.
cobia fishing, hey, I didn't have too many, maybe 3, 4, 5,000, that's all.
The one secret I want to know is every morning when I saw you go by Navarre Pier, and I'd see you sneak right up on the beach right there.
Sure. I would go sneak right up on the beach, and what guys, the ones that y'all missed, I'd just pick them off.
Do you think that we missed a fish down on the pier when you snuck right in there?
Come on, you never seen me. The only time I ever went by Navarre Pier and pulled close enough to where somebody could hit me with a jig was
should've done that.
when Carl Jones used to call me in. Come here, Frank. Yeah, okay. Don't let him throw at me. But I've owned 15 and a half footer, a 24 footer, a 30 footer, and a 36 footer. And the last one was the best I ever owned, 36-foot Rampage. But every boat that I ever owned had a white bottom. Think about it. Some big old dark clouds, them big old boats out there painted blue, green, black, or whatever the hell other color, driving over a bunch of fish. What you think them fish is gonna say? Get the hell out of Dodge. Mine was white. They come up and want to see how big that ray was. That wasn't no secret. Everybody in the boatyard knew I did it.
It was probably a secret to most of these people. Tell me why would you have it painted white? You said a ray. What's the secret to a ray?
Oh, they love them rays, man.
What kind of rays?
Any kind of ray, especially a leopard ray. Cobias love them rays. I can't say what I want to, but they hang around them.
Right. Well, cobia are basically trash fish, and they eat anything: catfish, stingrays, eels, jigs, whatever. They're scavengers, and they love to follow other fish like big manta rays and eagle rays and sharks and headfish and whatever. If you see something odd during cobia season, make sure you go look at it. In a little while, we'll talk about fads.
Yes. I had my own fad for a long time.
All those things that you see out there, basically sharks, rays, whatever, they all have white bellies. And it's more natural to that fish to see that white bottom vessel than a dark bottom vessel.
Hey, I never floated what you call it?
Fad.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I never made one stationary.
I got you.
I had my own fad that I carried around in the boat with me, and I would drop it off wherever I wanted to. Then I'd go back and pick it up. I had the people out on at the end of West Hollywood that makes these low boy coolers.
Magna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can buy 2-inch thick styrofoam, 4x8 sheets, white. And I used to have 2 of them tied together, and I'd drop them off out there someplace, that little old orange balloon on the top of it, and I'd go back and check them every once in a while. You'd be amazed how many cobia I caught off of that fad. It just drifted along. I didn't have an anchor, it just drifted. And it got to where, instead of having 4 or 5 boats fishing between Destin and Pensacola, it got to be 150 to 200 boats, and everybody started checking out my fads. I said, the hell with that, I'll take them back home. So I don't use fads anymore. But they was good for a while. You set them off the beach. Another thing, on the Panama City in Pensacola, if you look at the map, Panama City sits over here, Pensacola sits over here, Fort Walton sits up here. We're almost 3 miles inshore of Pensacola and Panama City. It's a big loop in that beach. That's why Pensacola catches the first fish. Normally on kind of the way the rips run. In the last 7 or 8 years that I fished anywhere from 1.5 miles to 2 miles off the beach. I'd go out there and find me a nice rip. I'd stay on the inshore side of it, and that rip would hit the pass in Pensacola. And you will be amazed at the fish that you catch on either side of that rip going west.
I'm one of the people that if I get to drive the boat while we're cobia fishing, you're probably going to get to see the sandbar twice. Once when we go across it in the morning, and once when we come across it in the afternoon.
That's the one that runs north and south. I'm talking the one that runs east and west.
But any of the sandbars, I don't fish up on the beach. I stay out in deeper water. If you were just going to go on a normal day's cobia fishing, how deep a water do you want most of our anglers to fish in? What's the closest, how shallow, like 12 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet?
I have no clue because I never looked to see how deep the water I was in. I mean, I could see cobia in 3 foot of water just as good as I can see them in 50 foot of water. Then the only thing difference to seeing them in 3 foot of water and 50 foot of water is when they go down, they'll go all the way to the bottom and they come right back up. And normally, in 8-10 foot of water, that's a distance of maybe 35 or 40 feet. But when you're out there in 50 foot of water and you see a water fish and they go down, you can count almost 1/4 mile before you see them again. Because they go all the way to the bottom and then they'll start gradually coming back up. That's why a lot of people that fish in deep water can't find fish out there. Because when they do find them, they overrun the fish. You gotta, patience. That's what it takes to catch cobia, is patience. And you never, you see, some of these people that go out there in boats do not have a clue. Oh, baby. None of that in here.
Say that again real loud. Yeah. Spread on.
Some of these people go out there in boats do not have a clue. Hey, run up the beer, get the rod, let's go. There are 2 things that you didn't take on my boat. That was beer and booze. I went out there to fish. I didn't go out there to drink. And some pretty good fishermen used to fish with me. Got to where, well, I can't take a 6-pack of beer, I won't go with it. Well, good for you. I'll catch just as many fish without you as I did with you, so what the hell?
Sorry, I can't.
But, what did you say?
What did I say? I wanted to know how deep the water I was going to fish in. I wanted to know how deep the water was going to be that I was going to fish in.
You was talking about deep water.
Yes, sir.
Well, it really, now for me, if I was out there fishing, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how deep the water was, but I would find me a nice rip that runs to the west, and I'd follow that rip. It might be 40 foot of water, it might be 20 foot of water. I never had one of them things that you could look at and say, oh, there's 22 more feet there to go.
So you don't worry about necessarily where the
Cobia fish, man, I didn't want to know what the hell was on the bottom.
So you don't really worry about whether the water is really clear up on the sandbar, or in the green water, or that blended color of the dark blue water.
Didn't bother me.
What about on a day when
The
it's
only thing, there was days, hello? You gotta tell me.
what if it was a day that was really muddy? Where the fish can be?
I'm coming to that right now.
All right.
There was days
Pull that finger.
when I was left,
He can't talk without him.
when I was left to
He'll mess him
have
up.
a piece of plywood with a cobia on top of it just to see what it looks like. And that's muddy water. I have been out there in some muddy places. But that's good. Because if you find that mud line out there, and you got a clear streak on the offshore side of it, you better damn sure hook that mud line. Because that's going to be, they're going to be 3 or 4 feet off that mud line, or they're going to be right next into that mud line. Not too far. And I caught a lot of fish that way, just running the mud line.
Why do you think
Not knowing how deep it was.
That's right. So what do you think makes them fish stay on that mud line?
I think they can see better.
Yeah.
I mean, if they think about it, you know.
Yeah. I've driven the boat back and forth across that mud line and watched the temperature gauge, and I guarantee you that muddy water is 2 or 3 degrees warmer than that clear water. If you'll sit there and drive back and forth across it a couple times like this and just watch your, GPS or whatever, the bottom machine, you'll find that muddy water is warmer, and then fish will hug right along that mud line. And some of the best days I've ever had are days when you go out there and you think, man, we're never gonna see nothing. And it's amazing how well they'll stick out in that mud. Fishing in the mud doesn't bother me at all.
Another thing, when you're boat fishing, you don't have to be a speed demon. Don't have to be a speed demon. Just put it along, just, easy going. I know that last boat I had was a 36-foot rampage. As a matter of fact, I built that boat. I started with the hull down at the boat in Fort Walton. And I would go out there and fish all day long and never burn more than 45, 48 gallons of diesel fuel. And because when I left the pass, I was doing about 800. And that's exactly how I would fish to Pensacola. 800 RPM, get down there, 11:30, 12 o'clock, turn around and hit back. 800 RPMs. But there's some of those guys that leave that pass in Destin, 9-hole. They don't pull it back till they get to the bar. Now, how many gallons of fuel do you think they burn?
So tell me about sunglasses and cobia fishing. Do I need sunglasses if I want to go cobia fishing?
No, not really. You can go cobia fish without any glasses. I don't know how many you're going to see, but But you can go out there without sunglasses if you want to. I'm not going to stop you, and I'll follow you, but see how many you get and see how many I got.
What you miss, I'll get.
What Frank's talking about on the Costa Del Mar 580s, you can go to any sunglass place. Most all the tackle stores, we carry them at half hitch. You'll find them at the Sunglass Hut and Wings and different places in town. But if you go to a place that lets you borrow a pair of glasses and just walk outside with them, if there's some technical lingo to explain how 580 lenses work. Costa Del Mar is one of the sunglass people. They make a wave 400 and a wave 580. But if you go outside and look at the leaves on the tree on a sunny day, and when you look at them out of a regular pair of good polarized sunglasses, you'll see the leaves. When you put on a pair of wave 580s, the leaves on the trees come this way and separate. It's almost like watching TV in high def. It makes a huge difference when you're spot casting for any kind of fish, whether it's a cobia out in the Gulf or a redfish on the flats or a tarpon down in South Florida or a bonefish fishing. Having a glass that gives you that definition, cuts the glare, it's polarized, has blue light protection, UV protection, so it's not hurting your eyes. It gives you that definition that you're looking for. It can make all the difference in the world, especially if you're pier fishing in a competitive environment. Having a quality pair of sunglasses makes a tremendous difference. Broom and broke the thing. Does anybody have any questions before we go any further? Yes, sir.
What's the best pier to fish?
What's the best pier to fish? My choice is I'm gonna tell you, it's either gonna be Pensacola or Panama City right now. Once Navarre Pier opens, that'll be a really good pier. The reason that their piers are better than ours are in relationship to the pass. Our pier is very close to the pass. As the fish come down the beach, they loop out around, and it takes them a while to get back to the beach. A lot of the fish don't actually hit the beach till they get down there to the El Matador condominium. So Pensacola, Navarre, and Panama City will be much better piers than Okaloosa Pier for cobia fishing, just because of the relationship of our pier to the pass. Yes, sir.
Thank you. How many cobia people walk off, Frank?
Say again?
How many cobia has Frank caught over the years?
How many cobia do you think you've caught total in your lifetime?
Oh, my. Are you kidding me?
What did you say?
How many cobia do you think you've caught total in your lifetime? 2?
I would say,
60 years?
I would say, without a doubt, I have caught more than 4,000.
That's a couple fish. How many over 100?
2.
2 over 100.
Yes, and I've caught a bunch of 90-pounders.
All right.
National
Doesn't really
Hurricane
have-
Center said it's going to be an active year. What do you think is going to be for cobia season?
I think it's going to be a
active
good.
or inactive?
I think it's going to be a good year, but it don't have nothing to do with hurricanes. It has to do with the winter that we've had. As far back as I can remember, damn, that's been a long ways.
Wow.
You see how you were born in 1912.
Most of the cobia seasons that we have had that were good, we've had real hard, long winters. And I like this year.
What else? What other secrets do you have for us cobia fishing? What do we need to know? Everybody here is thirsty for knowledge. What else do we need to know for cobia fishing? Secrets that we can't live without.
Can you hear that?
Yeah. Rattlers.
That's rattlers.
That's right.
I don't know how many of you use rattlers, but they work. The reason why I know they work is we've thrown the same colored jig with a rattler, without a rattler, at a fish, and every time the jig that's got the rattler on it will get the hit.
We got a question. How do you rig the rattles? How do you rig these?
Put it on the hook.
Does it have a loop that goes on the hook? We're gonna show you.
Oh, man. He can't go out to the crowd. He's stuck again. Go ahead, Daddy.
You see that little ring right there?
Oh, my number.
Just put it on the hook and slide it back all the way back to the edge of the
All right, Tim, anything else you'd like to add as far as cobia fishing? I know we've covered a lot of information. There's a lot to it, cobia fishing. Captain Frank's done it for years and years and years, so there's tons. It's impossible to cover it in one night. We are going to hang around for a little bit and answer any more questions if you do have them.
I got another.
Go ahead. He's got another tip for us.
Did y'all turn this off again?
No, you did. You did.
Another thing. Hats.
Yes.
Do not wear a hat that is not dark under the bottom. White, orange, pink, no good. They cause a glare. If it's a dark blue or black, there's a lot less glare when you're looking over the water.
All right. Well, I sure do appreciate it, guys. Y'all have given us tons of information. I can't thank Frank enough to come out here and share all of this wealth of knowledge with us from years and years of cobia fishing. I really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.